Welcome. This is a monthly webinar we produce from CVC Coaching, and we hope it's a benefit to you. The title of this month's webinar is, it's all about standard operating procedures, what we call SOPs. And you know, it's a subject matter I have shared, I have taught on. I'm going to tell you a little history of the SOPs. I hope you're able to watch this month because there are going to be quite a few slides on this to help you get a feeling of what to do. So the title of this month's webinar is Standard Operating Procedures, and I have a subtitle, Transforming Chaos into Turnkey. And that's what SOPs are going to do. And I'm going to show you how to build them. I'm going to talk about the process of how to build them. And if you have questions after this is over with, after you've watched it, hey, email them to me, jerry@cvccoaching.com. Love to be able to help you with this. But anyway, let's move on with the seminar, see what we can learn today. I think it's going to be a really good learning experience for you. So this is what I see so many people doing. They've started a business, but the whole thing is they've lost their personal life. And this is a cry so often we hear, give me back my life. Give me back my life. And that's part of the process and how this is going to happen. What you've got to remember is, in a business, you got to have what's called a replicatable business model. And there's a couple different ways you can spell replicatable. You may feel that's misspelled or whatever, but there's different ways it can be spelled. You also have what's called a scalable business model. In other words, excuse me, your business may be a small business of 1 or 2 people, and if you're going to scale the business, means that you can take the same business model and you can move it into a 10, a 20, a 100-person operation. And I've got a note here of McDonald's, the largest small business in the world. And McDonald's is a business that is standing the test of time. It has been built into vastly different countries, but what it is the same model that has been scaled up from what was originally designed, and we'll go into a little bit. One of the books that I advise every small business owner to read, and it's one that I read some years ago, is The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I had the pleasure one time of having breakfast with Mr. Gerber. I listened to Mr. Gerber present, and I've watched Mr. Gerber's principles change the way that businesses are operated and take them to an entirely new level. Other people that are listening to this, some people have went through the E-Myth Mastery Program where you work with an E-Myth coach to work to get the systems built within the business. And what it's all about is to give you a business. You have to remember your business exists for a reason. And the reason your business exists is to get you the things that you want in life. And if and the whole principle is to build it to where you don't have to work 20 hours a day. You can actually build a business that the business will operate itself. It really, truly can. Think about McDonald's. Right now you pull up the drive-in window, you're going to get what you order is coming out the other side. And what is the reason for that? The system is the solution. I want you to remember that. Ray Kroc, this was one of his quotes, the system is the solution. Ray Kroc is the guy that discovered McDonald's hamburgers, McDonald's brothers, back in the 50s. And what he saw there was something that he felt he could take to a new level. You see, the McDonald brothers, the problem they had, to quote Dr. John Maxwell, was they had a lid. They had a lid on what they can do. And one of the principles of leadership is taught by Dr. Maxwell, and I've tried to share people is you can only operate up to the level of your particular lid, your particular lids. When you look at it, it is unreal. They are now opening a new McDonald's every 17 hours. They have 8 million employees as of 2014. I can remember when McDonald's had a sign of how many hamburgers they have served. This was through the entire chain. Today, they serve vastly more than that on a daily basis. And they're able to do this, they're able to make this all happen because they have built a system that works. One gentleman that I want to quote here is a guy that I've met. He's a student of mine, and he's probably one of the best I've ever seen at taking SOPs to become his guiding light in business. Maybe you've heard the guy's name is Chuck Roydhouse. He owns a company. It's called Clean Sweep of Anne Arundel County. He also has what's called the Roydhouse effect. Excellent guy. But I've got to say that Chuck, of everyone I've ever worked with, is a student that has made me vastly proud, because when I asked him for a quote, Chuck, tell me what SOPs are. Give me a quote. And this is what Chuck said. SOPs are guardrails on your business highway that keep you on the path of success through efficiency, consistent delivery of service, and maximum ROI. And those are the words of Chuck Roydhouse. And I think they are excellent words that anyone can live by and run their business by and make the business get to the level. You got to do this. You always got to remember, what's that dream? What's that dream? What was that dream you had the day you started your business? And I'm going to tell you something. SOPs are part of what you're going to find is going to help you get to that dream where you can live your dream. It's how it works. The process is as following. You have to take the time to work on the business. This is one of the key thoughts of the E-Myth. So often we get so tied up in the day-to-day operation of the business, we spend all of our time working in the business. Well, you got to back off from there in order to build a library, a workable outline, a set of SOPs. You have got to stand back and you have got to spend the time to work on the business. If you don't work on the business, you're never going to make this business deliver your streams. It's not going to happen on its own. I say this often. Running a business is hard work. It really, truly it is. And you've got to dedicate yourself to it. Now, the things I'm going to talk about in this webinar, it's going to be some work. But the key thing is when you get this work accomplished, what you're going to find is you're going to have a model that you can replicate, you can scale, and not only that, it's going to add value to your business, it's going to add a high return, and if you follow SOP processes and you institute them, it's going to be amazing the results you're going to see. What are standard operating procedures? We call them for short terms. They're SOPs. So what are these things that we got to do? Number one, it's a document. It describes the operation of a task in order to ensure its quality. What is it also? It's a set of instructions, procedures, and steps, which is written so that other individuals can follow. It maximizes the operational and production requirements. And the overall purpose is to carry out the operations, your operations, correctly and always in the same manner. Now, if you're doing that, just think how you've eradicated mistakes in your business. Just think how you're going to up your profits, how you're going to eliminate waste. So SOPs, they're part of a lean process in a company. And lean is all about doing more with less. Doing more with less. So you want to keep these things in mind. We're going to, these are the processes that are going to take you to an entirely new level. Now, as you build your SOPs within the business, you're going to have two sides of these SOPs. One is going to be the technical side, operation, however you want to call it. It's how you do the job. But we also have SOPs on the administrative side. How do we run the business from the office side? How do we answer the telephone? How do we do every task? Now, where this comes in, whenever you get a new person in, it's a simple matter of, instead of taking everything that's in your mind, which is a lot of information, and sharing it with another person, think right now, how long is it going to take you to do that with a new hire? How long is it going to take you to share everything that you know about this business with your new hires? And the SOPs, what they're going to do, they're going to share that information. and they're also going to be a vehicle to hold your people accountable and yourself accountable, because this is key. As the owner, you have to hold yourself accountable. Again, going back to Dr. Maxwell, we talk in Dr. Maxwell's books, in his teaching, about accountability. And you see, here's what you have to remember. As a leader, you have to be able to hold yourself accountable before you can hold others accountable. So as you're going through and you build the SOP, you've also got to understand, when you build an SOP, you've got to have the correct language. So you're speaking to multiple generations, multiple generations, and multiple generations talk and listen in different matters. I made a little joke a while back. I was traveling in the Midwest, and I stopped in and I asked, and when the server was waiting to take my order, I'm an iced tea drinker, and I said, "Is your iced tea good?" And what he said was amazing. "Well, it tastes like me. It tastes kind of like Mickey D's." Good God Almighty. And another time, I asked about a special food that was on the menu, and the description was, "Well, it's kind of like a Pop-Tart." So what you've got to remember is, you're assembling your SOPs. You've got to speak in the language of each generation that you work with, which is a very difficult thing to do. So the SOPs that you write, they've got to be able to be understood by Generation Z, a Generation X, a millennial, and a baby boomer. That's 4 distinct generations that all speak and listen differently. And that is nothing against any of those. Don't read anything into what I'm saying. But you have got to be able to communicate with a wide range of personalities and a wide range of learning styles and different people. So you got to make sure you're using the correct language and the descriptive terms are proper whenever you write SOPs. What's the format of an SOP? That's what you have to set. What is your requirements for the format, the length? This is the whole situation as it is. The SOP is your SOP. It needs to meet your needs. But vastly important is, it's got to serve your needs. Is there a certain length, a certain content, or whatever? It can be a simple paragraph. It could be a set of bullet points. It could be a summary of the steps. Very effective SOPs will often contain illustrations, photos, and flowcharts. And now they even contain contain videos, because many people are now adding the use of video and storing these on a unlisted YouTube site that can be pulled down anywhere there is internet access. These are also commonly being stored in various software programs that are available to you in the industry, where you have your own SOPs written inside of your software system. It's one of the advantages of today's digital world. But what's the goal of it? It has to adequately describe the task in a way that a person who's not familiar with the task can perform and complete the task. They can do it from reading this SOP. Anyone. So what you've got to remember is, when you write SOPs, you've got to have them written in this manner. Who writes it? The best person to write an SOP is a person who does the task. And see, this is where you've got to get your team involved. See, when you look at it, I'm sure that if you have multiple employees working for you, that, as much as we hate to admit it, some of them may be better at a specific task than we are. Let's take it that you're the business owner. We need an SOP on our payroll system. And many owners don't understand how their own payroll is reached. So the person who writes the SOP for payroll should be the person who does the payroll. Now, what this is also doing is, this is relinquishing the handcuffs that many business owners can be held under. Because one of the reasons that we often hold on to someone that maybe should not be a part of our team for various reasons is they're the only one in the company that knows how to do it. In other words, they are a set. They have you with handcuffs. And as a leader can never function when there's handcuffs on that leader. What will the SOP function as? It's the go-to for the reader. Imagine your employees need a question answered. How many hours in a day, in a week, in a month do you spend answering questions? It can be a phenomenal amount of time, a phenomenal amount. Effective SOP writing should use short sentences. Always understand this. Long sentences, long paragraphs can be hard for people to understand. Shorter sentences are much easier for the person to understand. Long paragraphs, hard to understand. A sentence, a paragraph, it should be about one step and no more than one step. How do you want to write it? You write it with an imperative voice. You never write it with a passive voice. The SOP is written in the form of a commands. Commands are much easier to understand. And commands take out the misunderstandings that often occur when there is a lack of proper communication. So again, these are all part of the processes that are going to help you move to a new level where things are going to start flowing and functioning much better. Here's an example of passive versus imperative. In the top, it says all service trucks should be washed weekly. That is a passive. There's, people can think of reasons why I'm not going to wash it today. The more imperative, descriptive SOPs will say wash service trucks weekly, which is going to require the action, which is going to take the question marks out, which is going to remove, well, boss, it's been raining this week. Should we wash the trucks? Hey, boss, I got to go to, I'm going down dirt road next week, so there's really no need to wash the truck this week, right? That's what you go through. So always make sure SOPs must be written in an imperative command, not in a passive, if you feel like it type. That's a good way to describe it. It got to be concise. The most concise is going to be the most effective. Write it in as few words as possible. Use short, direct sentences so the reader can quickly understand and they can memorize the steps. This is going to be very helpful when further review and modification is needed, because that's one of the things about the SOP process is you have to periodically review and modify these. An effective user of SOPs will do an annual review of their SOPs, because things will need to be modified. Why? Because the market will change, the customer will change, your business will change. So you got to be aware of this. You want to always state the reason and the purpose of the SOP. Your people have to understand the reasoning for the SOP. As you look, there is a very directive one there. Never erect a ladder within 10 feet of a power line. The ladder could slide, touch the line, and you would die. Very descriptive term. Some may say it's hard, but at the same time, how would it say if it said, you should attempt to never erect a ladder within 10 feet of a power line? Is that what you really want them to do? Or do you want to make that flat rule? Never erect within 10 feet or 20 feet. The distance is immaterial. The reasoning I'm trying to share with you is how these are written. How these are written. You've got to identify the task. You identify the need and you identify the goal. The goal of the SOP must be clearly defined. And what do you want to desire by or to achieve by the implementation of the SOP? The people that are reading this, and this is very common with what we call the millennial generation, which drives the baby boomer generation crazy many times. The millennial generation, they want to know why. And once they understand why, then the 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 way you're going to do this, it's going to just become so much easier. So always identify the need and identify what the goal is. We'll say you're doing payroll. What's the goal? The goal is to produce our payroll so paychecks are ready to be distributed and taxes are properly deposited to keep us within light of what our overall goals is to do the job. All of these are part of the process that we go through. You have to create a draft. Remember, and this is the hard part, SOPs are not going to be written one time. Create the draft. And the draft has to be created by a person who is expert in the task. If you have someone writing SOP who is unfamiliar with the task, you have just issued an invitation for the failure. But you also have to remember this, the expert in the task may only be able to provide a rough draft. A technician would be an example. They would know how to do the task, but can they actually produce this document in a format and a form that you can use? That's the question. From this, you have to write the document. It's got to be written in a manner that gives explicit instructions. It leaves nothing to misunderstanding. It can't be misconstrued. And when you write this, you got to think like the reader. Bullet points are going to work much better than paragraphs. As I mentioned before, photos, illustrations, graphs, and now even videos can assist you greatly in doing this task. Use the tools. Communication is getting much higher refined, and what we can do with the digital world today is truly amazing as you go into this. You've got to have a review process. The review process includes review by persons familiar with the task, but then the more important review is the person who is unfamiliar with the task. Is it understandable? And then we got to have a review by management. A time frame should be given for this approval. Implementation. Proper implementation, very important. It's of utmost importance. The manager should be aware that retraining in a procedure that has been changed will be more difficult than training someone new who has never done the task. So as you're rolling out your SOPs, be very aware. The more difficult SOP will be the one that changes the way people presently do something, because old habits die hard. As a trainer, I can tell you, it is vastly easier to train someone who has never done a task than it is to train someone experienced in the task, because the person who is experienced not only has to learn the new way, they have to forget the old way. So keep in mind, that's going to be a really big one right there, your implementation process. You got to track and measure. The purpose of SOPs, it could be more profits. Another one is less downtime. You're wanting to cut your callbacks. You want higher sales. You want to land more customers. You want to land more business. But what you've got to do is that the rest of your business, you've got to track and measure in order to ascertain the system is working as designed. The system is working. And you see the word lean. It's all part of the lean systems, the lean systems. This is how you're going to climb this ladder to go to your dreams. It's going to work, guys, but only if you dedicate the time into it and spend the time to work on your business. It doesn't work otherwise. You got to modify and update at the times. The world around you is going to change. Your market's going to change. Your services will change. Your products will change. And the very way you do business will change. There's one thing for sure in this world, change is a constant. SOPs are not written in stones. You got to do that. You have to give them periodic updates. If you try to do business as you did 20 years ago, you're probably going to fail. So will an unmaintained SOP fail. Don't get disrupted by market changes. This is what happens. We're set in our ways. And as we look at this world around us, look at the companies that have faltered, set in the way they have done business. They're all over the place. Sears Roebuck, Kmart, Circuit City, Radio Shack. I even saw earlier today, H.H. Gregg closing doors. You've got to be aware of how the market is changing. And it's also up to you as management. You have a key responsibility. You have to inspect for what you expect. And if there's a mess, you got to understand it's your mess. And you've got to be the one to clean it up. So that's what leaders do. Often, one of the key gold nuggets for a leader is when the leader figures out, finally, that if there's something wrong, it's his fault. When something's wrong, it's his fault. Now, or her fault. Once you can understand and accept that, you have made one of the most monumental leadership findings that you can. You're responsible. You got a mess. It's no one else's fault. It's your fault. You got to clean up that mess. And this is where it really gets good. Imagine the day you come to work and you have people come up to you and they ask you a question that worked for you. And the answer is, what does their SOP say about that? What's their SOP say? What you have here is such a tool to manage, to lead people. Guys, gals, it's really unreal. Like I said, read the E-Myth if you've never read it. If you've read the E-Myth in the past, go back and read it again. It's spelled out in there. The E-Myth systems, working on the business, not just in the business, spending this time. I'm going to tell you, putting this system together, it's going to take some work on your part. You're going to spend a lot of hours doing it. But I can also tell you that the hardest SOP you ever write will be your first one. As you go through this, you're going to find that it gets easier and easier and easier as you're writing them. Every time there's a problem, if the answer is not detailed, there is where you need an SOP. The SOP basically should cover every function that your business does, every function. And when you've got these SOPs into place and everything else, you're going to find that all of a sudden life is smoother for you. What formats do you use? There's all kinds of different ones. You can buy templates to write these with. You can use Word documents. I've seen some do an excellent job using PowerPoint, Publisher, Excel. There's so many different ways. And like I said, photos, videos, illustrations, pictures, graphs, all these are going to be helpful. All these are going to be helpful. So figure the format that works for you. But the format that you use, keep in mind, you're setting this format up for a company of your dreams. Is it going to be larger? Because what you want is you want SOPs that are scalable to the business as it goes up. You don't want to have to write an SOP because all of a sudden you went from 1 truck to 3 trucks. You don't have to go back and redo all the SOPs. You're going to modify them some as you go through, but you don't want to rewrite these things. Things that we're going to put on a successful SOP. We want the title of the SOP. What's the purpose? What's the purpose? What's the process they're going to go through? What's the goal of the SOP? What's the date of implementation? What date are they modified? How are you going to catalog these? How are you going to keep these all together? Because remember, you're writing an SOP for every function within your business. And see, a lot of people get excited about this and they do a few. But carrying this forward to the fullest degree, that's where it gets difficult. That's where it gets difficult. Accessible. How do your people get to this? Every person that works for you should always have an accessible working copy. And there also has to be a master copy. This can be in electronic form. This can be in a printed form. Here's what you also need to understand. Some people function very well with an electronic digital version. Other people do not. They have to hold paper in their hands. They have to. It is set within their psychology. I've seen this all the way from the highest level of management all the way down. I've seen this with bookkeepers where they have to have a ledger book. They can't function with a digital format of QuickBooks. I'm serious. So you've got to understand this, and you have to make this where it functions and works for the people that are on your team. It's got to be accessible. How are you going to store it? How do you get to it? With digital and online storage that's available today, Google Drives, Dropboxes, your software system, this has opened up a whole new world for the process of SOP storage and access. But it's going to depend on the level of your staff members and their comfort level with electronic storage and if they will use it effectively. And you may find that you have some people that cannot, will not, refuse to work with the electronic versions. And you may be faced with paper versions also in order to get it across to all of your people. Again, it's going to depend on the age group that you're dealing with. It's going to depend on the age group of what you're dealing with. That's where it's going to work for you. How are you going to start this? You're going to need to list what are the tasks within your company that are done. Give you some examples. How do you start the day? How do you want the day ended? When's the truck cleaned out? What do you want to do to open your office? How do you do any task within the business? Any task. No, there is no task too minute. So what you've got to do here is prioritize them. What are the important things that are also urgent? That would be the SOPs you need to start with. You've also have things that are important, but they're not urgent. And you have things that are urgent, but they're not really important. And you have things that are not important and not urgent. So you've got to prioritize this. So what you need to do is sit down, start labeling the tasks that are done within your company. And what I recommend you do also is get 4 different colors of ink pen. If it's an important task and it's urgent, you're going to write it down in one color. If it's important but not urgent, use another color. Not important but urgent, another color. And not important and not urgent, that's a 4th color. This is one idea of the system of how to get there. One idea in the system of how to make it happen. Because this is a key word. We're seeing this word more and more and more. And that is the word culture. Company culture. And one of the things and one of the ways to build to a great company culture is to have an SOP system. Because the SOP is going to be the guidelines that cover your operation to ensure that your customer is seeing, hearing from, reacting to, and receiving in all your dealings with them a great culture. And by doing this, your customer is going to become an enthused customer. They know what to expect. They know what you're delivering. But it's up to you to get the message across to do this in a way that will work. Now, I'm going to encourage you as the manager, like anything else, you need to set your goals. You need to set your goals. In talking to people in businesses like will receive this, you may be looking at 50 SOPs. You may be looking at 60. You may be looking at 40. Again, it's your program. But in order to turn this out, let's just say that we had 50 SOPs. Well, we had 50 SOPs and our goal is 1 SOP a week, it's going to take you about a year to turn out 50 SOPs. Now, if we increase that to 2 SOPs a week, we're now going to accomplish this in about 6 months. And if we can set ourselves a goal, which is not that hard, of 4 SOPs a week, do you realize in less than 3 months, you can have an industry viewed excellent SOP system within your business? 3 months. Is that what you're looking for? Because that moves it on. Just imagine less than 3 months from now, with a little work on your part. Yeah, it's going to take some work. I'm not going to lie to you. Putting these together, it takes some work. But like anything else, once you get in the mode, you're going to be shocked how fast this can go. But you can't just put it off. You can't just set aside and say, well, I'll get it when I get there. Because I'm going to tell you just like it is, I've seen people that have been struggling with this for 20, 25 years. 25 years they have been trying to get this done. 25 years. 20 years. 15 years. To me, you set yourself some goals. Decide to put the time in. Dedicate yourself to this. You're going to be truly shocked at the results you can have. And what's going to be even more shocking is the results you're going to have once you implement this program. How many will it take? Enough to cover every segment of your business. There is no task too small. There is no task too large. No task too small, no task too large. You got to cover every segment of your business, every segment. Because here's the whole thing, when you do that, you had a dream. I'll bet you started your business. You had a dream out there. That dream was on the horizon. Well, here's a simple hard call. Nothing happens from dreams. I've talked about dreams ever since I've been in coaching. And dreams are simply a goal of what you're going to go for. Dreams are what it's all about out there. But this is what a dream requires. A dream requires action. A dream requires action. And if you don't take action, dreams never going to come real. And what's even worse, many times people are going to have their dreams turn into nightmares. It's not what you want. It's really not. Remember your dreams. You got dreams. We all got dreams. You got to move towards them. And with that, I hope that this has been a helpful webinar for you. I hope that you can take some of these concepts and you can put them to work in your business. I'm hoping that you can take these concepts and you can build your dream, take the action, use a process to get there. My name's Jerry Eisenhower. You can reach me, Jerry, at cvccoaching.com. If we can help you with this, hey, drop us an email, drop us a line. We'll be glad to give you a little bit of start towards doing this. Talked about earlier about the word culture. I want to remind you, leadership and culture, that's what takes your businesses. That's one of the 2 key ingredients. And I want to invite you to join us in Dayton, Ohio, June 13th and 14th, where my company, CVC Coaching, National Chimney, Saver Systems, and Heat Shield. John Meredith, Darren Bibu, Jerry Eisenhower, Cheryl Eisenhower, and the staff at Aileron. We're going to be presenting a 2-day seminar on leadership and culture. As part of this, you're going to actually take a leadership assessment and you're going to get a debriefing by Aileron. And the cost of that test alone exceeds what the cost of this total seminar is that we're putting in with us. So you want to join us in Dayton. We got limited seating. For information, contact us at info@cvccoaching.com. And with that, I want to thank you for joining me this month. Let me know how we can help you. We want to see people's dreams reached. Reach out to us. Tell us what kind of subjects you'd like to have on webinars. Hey, we want to provide education for you. That's our mission. That's our goal. So this is Jerry, CVC Coaching, signing off once again, and I'm hopeful this webinar has been of value to you. Let us know how we can help you reach your business dreams. They don't have to stay dreams. They can become reality. Have a good week. Talk to you next time.